Fear of the unknown has been humanity's loyal companion since day one. From the start, humans reacted to their surroundings with primal instincts and treated the unpredictable unknown as both a blessing and a curse. For our ancestors, it was a powerful, mysterious force responsible for both their good fortune and their calamities. Think about it. So many religions worship fire. Hinduism has a major god out of their 330 million gods. This guy, called Agni, can be found at the center of many of their rituals, including marriages. Of course, there's a belief that humans have been fearing fire since the time they discovered it, and what you don't understand, you fear, and ultimately worship, so that this force doesn't hurt you. The ancient Greeks, for instance, had a pantheon of gods and goddesses they believed ruled over nature and their lives. If the gods were in a mood, trouble wasn't far behind. To stay on their good side, the Greeks turned to prayers and rituals. Eventually, though, they started to swap myths for a reason, ditching divine explanations in favor of natural ones. This shift in thinking and the perception of things saw the birth of natural philosophy, what we'd now call science. You see, man started to find reasons and explanations in everything, because an explanation breeds familiarity, and it eliminates the fear of the unknown. Science has since blown open the doors of the unknown, but it's also shown us just how much more there is to discover in this endless universe. And if there's anyone who truly made the unknown the ultimate source of fear, it has to be H.P. Lovecraft, the man, the legend, the 20th century maestro whose work would shape the future of horror and give birth to a new philosophy altogether, albeit posthumously. Lovecraft's works ventured into the vast cosmos, teasing the idea of mysterious beings lurking in the infinite void. He didn't just stop at spooky monsters, he tapped into humanity's existential dread, making us feel like ants on an impossibly large stage. What he tried to do in most of his work was take things like existential crisis and nihilism and inflate them into unimaginable levels. He would present these concepts on a universal scale. He would make you feel and understand just how small and inconsequential you and your actions are in the grander scheme of things. And this sort of trivialness would fill you with innumerable emotions as a reader. But the most primal and strongest of these emotions would be fear. And in this video, we will explore Lovecraft's Cosmicism at length. We will dive deep into his work to understand just what it is that makes him relevant even after almost 90 years of his death. But before I begin, I have a small request. Please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons on your screens. These are 2 small clicks for you, but they help us in marvelous ways to keep bringing you these videos. And now let's begin. How did Lovecraft's family dynamics and childhood shape his future and thinking? H.P. Lovecraft's life was a roller coaster of alienation, fear, and anxiety, a mix of personal demons that fueled his unforgettable tales of cosmic horror. His recurring themes of insignificance and madness weren't just fiction, they were deeply rooted in his life story. In fact, this is a very natural thing to do for a writer. They do often represent their life's experiences and incidents in their work, so the work feels more authentic and biographical without actually being biographical. Some writers do this more than others, and Lovecraft was one of the former variety. Born in 1890, Lovecraft had a rough start. His father, Winfield Scott Lovecraft, was committed to an asylum after a psychotic breakdown when Lovecraft was just 3. Syphilis claimed his father's life soon, a terrible disease, and I hope no one has to experience it ever. Anyway, after his father's death, the young Howard was left in the care of his overprotective mother, Sarah Susan Phillips Lovecraft, and a young Howard barely saw the outside world. She doted on him obsessively, keeping him under her watchful eye as though the universe outside their home was some great lurking menace. Clearly, she was also a victim of mental illnesses, most significant of which was paranoia. After her husband's death, Sarah Susan believed that something might take her child away, and that's where things started to spiral down for her. Thankfully, his maternal grandfather, Whipple Van Buren Phillips, stepped in as a father figure to Howard. Old Whipple was a good man and loved his grandson, but more importantly, he was a learned man and wanted Howard to read. Needless to say, Mr. Whipple became the gateway to classic literature, poetry, and eerie tales that shaped Lovecraft's imagination. Ironically, he even helped young Howard conquer his fear of the dark. By age 2, Lovecraft was reciting poetry, and by 3, he was devouring books. 3 or 4 years later, Howard had already begun to write well, almost on par with kids double his age. It's evident that young H.P. Lovecraft was something of a prodigy and loved literature. He loved to read and write. However, life was not very kind to him. Whenever his life seemed to become stable and peaceful, something or the other happened, and it was mostly death which knocked on his doors. Not to take him, but someone close to him. The death of his grandmother, Roby, did well to tear the family's emotional well-being into a million pieces. Everyone, not just Whipple and Sarah Susan, even Howard found himself in an emotional abyss of sorts. At the funeral and until some time later, his mother and aunts went fully gothic. They started dressing in black and sinking into a permanent mourning period. For Howard, this sight was very profound and impactful, leaving its mark on his impressionable mind. Eventually, the loss of his grandmother and the morose environment of the house triggered terrifying nightmares. In these vivid dreams, strange creatures, later called night gaunts in his stories, snatched him up and carried him over dark, decayed cities to a gray, needle-like mountain void. This went on for some time, and just as Howard had begun to settle down and accept the new scheme of things, his grandfather died. This was huge for him because Whipple was the only father figure that the boy truly had or remembered. But Whipple's demise had another effect on his daily life. You see, the family lost their elegant Victorian home and relocated to a far humbler dwelling. For Lovecraft, this was a rock-bottom phase. He considered ending his life, but found solace in the pursuit of knowledge. His budding love for science, starting with chemistry and later astronomy, gave him a sense of purpose and sparked his fascination with the infinite, uncaring cosmos, a theme central to his works. Although brilliant in school, mathematics tripped him up. In 1908, a nervous breakdown cut short his high school education. He never earned a formal degree, but taught himself the rest, proving that life's setbacks can't smother the hunger for knowledge or creativity. H.P. Lovecraft's relationship with his mother was, to put it mildly, complicated. She often called him hideous, claiming he avoided people because he couldn't bear to be looked at. These remarks stuck, and he grew up believing them. I mean, if you tell a child such things, he's bound to grow up into a disturbed young adult, until he figures out that there's more to life than what was said in the past, and that not everything that a parent says is true. But that transformation of belief takes time. There are even accounts of him walking the streets with his face hidden in a raincoat, avoiding the gaze of strangers. But as I was saying, things changed for the better, and life took a surprising twist when he joined a group of amateur journalists. This experience pretty much gave him a new lease on life. For the first time, he met people who shared his interests and passions. He felt like he belonged. His involvement in this community kickstarted his prolific letter-writing habit. Lovecraft wrote an estimated 100,000 letters, many as fascinating as his stories, offering deep insights into his beliefs and daily life. Can you imagine writing 100,000 letters? To put it in perspective, that's writing one letter every day for 273 years. Anyway, in 1921, after a nervous breakdown, he was admitted to the same hospital where his father had died some 2 decades ago. Then, complications from gallbladder surgery led to Susie's death. Grief overwhelmed Lovecraft, and he once again considered ending his life. This marked the end of a major chapter in his life, as all his elder relatives were gone. Eventually, he met Sonia Green, whom he later married. They moved to New York, but the marriage faced financial and emotional challenges. Sonia's job required frequent travel, and Lovecraft despised New York, feeling alienated in the sprawling city filled with foreigners. His sense of isolation during this period deeply influenced the eerie detachment in his writing. While his xenophobia was not uncommon for his era, it remains a controversial aspect of his legacy and a subject of ongoing discussion. One could discard him as a racist, and I would not hold them wrong, but we must remember that he was a product of his time. His racist views were not something he started, but something that he fell victim to. Having said that, he was old enough and should have been able to differentiate between the right and the wrong. Anyway, let's move on. So in 1926, he returned to Providence, Rhode Island, the place he adored and famously described as, "I am Providence." And interestingly, this is also what's written on his epitaph. He lived there until his death, often struggling with poverty. Many of his greatest works appeared in low-paying pulp magazines and received little to no recognition in his lifetime. As his health worsened, cancer left him in constant pain. In 1937, it spread to his intestines, ultimately claiming his life. What is Lovecraft's Cosmicism and what are its tenets? So before I explain the nuances and details of the philosophy, I think I must explain in brief what exactly Lovecraft's Cosmicism really is. I guess that makes more sense, and I hope you concur. So the core of Lovecraft's philosophy, Cosmicism, insists that the universe is godless and that we're specks of dust in its incomprehensible vastness. This fear of insignificance, the overwhelming sense of a cosmic void, is his signature theme. Cosmicism shares interesting parallels with philosophies like absurdism, existentialism, and nihilism, all born from humanity grappling with the absurd, the clash between our search for meaning and a seemingly indifferent universe. While all three movements spring from the same well of existential confusion, they take different paths. Existentialism focuses on finding meaning, often through personal choice and confronting suffering. Nihilism, meanwhile, coldly recognizes that meaning is a product of the human mind. It doesn't exist outside of us. Absurdism, somewhere in the middle, embraces the tension, life's meaninglessness versus our relentless drive to create meaning anyway. It's the ultimate cosmic paradox, a playful rebellion against life's indifference. H.P. Lovecraft's philosophy of cosmicism is not for the faint-hearted. His stories don't focus on character growth or heartwarming narratives. Instead, they dive straight into the phenomena that surround his characters and their overwhelming emotional reactions to the unknown. The bleakness in his tales is oddly refreshing, offering a visceral shakeup that few writers managed to deliver. Lovecraft took horror out of the haunted houses and cemeteries and tossed it into the endless abyss of space and time. He did not want to dwell into the overused monsters like ghosts and vampires. His horrors lie in the vast, incomprehensible unknown. His early interest in astronomy fueled this perspective. To him, humanity is a tiny speck in an infinite universe. Earth and everything on it is so laughably small that all our history, religions, and achievements amount to zilch on the cosmic scale. His cosmicism highlights humanity's insignificance and the terrifying vastness of the universe. It challenges the comforting idea that humans are central to existence. Instead, it embraces the chilling truth. We simply don't matter in the grand scheme of things. Lovecraft often describes us as miserable denizens of a wretched little fly speck on the back door of a microscopic universe. Ouch, right? But that's the essence of cosmicism, an existential gut punch on a universal scale. The fear in Lovecraft's work isn't just about what we don't know, it's about what we can't know. He believed there are truths so vast and incomprehensible that they could shatter the human mind. In The Call of Cthulhu, he wrote, "We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity." He thought that if science ever pieced together all its fragmented knowledge, the terrifying reality it revealed would either drive us insane or make us wish for blissful ignorance. Scientific discovery, in his view, wasn't humanity's salvation, but its doom. In The Color Out of Space, one of Lovecraft's favorite stories, a meteorite crashes on a farm, carrying an indescribable color. It wasn't even a color by human standards. This alien presence poisoned everything it touched, sending people into madness or death. Lovecraft's horrors weren't just monsters. They were forces so alien that human minds couldn't even begin to grasp them. The core of Lovecraft's cosmic horror was this sense of foreignness. He wanted readers to feel completely unsettled, to face the truly unknown. And while much of his terror stemmed from the cosmic void, it didn't stop there. In his stories, these unknowable forces also lurk beneath the earth, in the depths of the oceans, and even within our dreams. Other philosophies that mirror cosmicism. Absurdism, a philosophy articulated by Albert Camus, wrestles with the clash between humanity's desire to find meaning in life and the universe's apparent indifference. Camus describes this in The Myth of Sisyphus as the tension between our need and purpose and the universe's chaotic lack of it. In The Stranger, he portrays this indifference as benign, which might be comforting if it weren't so utterly bleak. On the other hand, existentialism takes a different, though related, path. Soren Kierkegaard, a monotheistic existentialist, saw the absurdity of the world but believed in overcoming it through a leap of faith. For him, inherent meaning could only come from God. Atheistic existentialists, like Friedrich Nietzsche, rejected this view entirely. With Nietzsche's famous proclamation of the death of God, the universe became a void devoid of inherent meaning. And both these share a lot of similarities with Lovecraft's Cosmicism. But the one that's the closest brother of Cosmicism is nihilism. Nihilism, particularly its existential form, deals with humanity's uncomfortable insignificance and the absence of inherent purpose. Unlike other forms, existential nihilism zeroes in on the idea that life, in the grand scope of existence, has no predetermined meaning or value. It's a philosophy that thrives in the shadow of existential crises, the moments when we confront our mortality and question life's purpose. While it may lead to passivity or despair, it also opens a door to create meaning in an otherwise meaningless universe. Nietzsche, the OG nihilist philosopher, tackled this bleak worldview head-on. Rather than wallowing in the void, he urged humanity to overcome it, advocating for self-determined values and personal creation of meaning. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, his titular character achieves a kind of superhuman status, laughing at the absurdity and emptiness of existence. Nietzsche's vision of superhuman laughter celebrates embracing life despite its absurdity, a rebellion against passive nihilism. This rebellious creation of meaning aligns existential nihilism with aesthetic existentialism, which shares the goal of finding purpose in a purposeless universe. However, where existentialists seek to make life meaningful through human will, Cosmicism, Lovecraft's literary philosophy, explores an entirely different dimension: humanity's utter insignificance in the cosmos. Cosmicism, while not strictly nihilistic, focuses on a different horror: the realization that humanity's concerns are meaningless, not because there is no purpose, but because we are irrelevant to the vast, indifferent universe. Lovecraft's view of humanity as miserable denizens of a wretched little fly speck underscores this. For him, human laws, morals, and emotions are local phenomena, laughably insignificant in the grand scheme. Lovecraft's mythos embodies this perspective through alien beings and forces that interact with humanity not of malice, but with indifference. These entities don't hate us. They don't care about us at all. In The Call of Cthulhu, he warns that humanity's limited understanding shields us from the full horror of reality. Should science one day piece together the vast, chaotic truths of the cosmos, the revelation would either drive us mad or push us into a new, blissfully ignorant dark age. Despite his bleak outlook, Lovecraft's work isn't entirely pessimistic. He identified himself as a cosmic indifferentist, rejecting both optimism and pessimism. For him, the universe's indifference wasn't a curse. It was a reality to confront. His work offers an alternative to anthropocentric philosophies that center humanity in existence. Lovecraft's universe is larger, stranger, and ultimately unknowable, a vision that can inspire terror but also awe. Some might label Lovecraft a misanthrope, but this is misleading. His fiction suggests that he didn't revel in humanity's insignificance. Rather, he struggled with it. He rejected the comforting meanings humans create for themselves, finding little interest in daily human life. Yet he invented his own mythos, rich with dark, incomprehensible forces, as a way to navigate the paradox of existence. For Lovecraft, the lack of meaning itself became a kind of meaning, a framework to articulate the paradox of finding significance in insignificance. But there was something else too, which framed what he imagined and wrote. And before I explore stuff like the Cthulhu mythos, I want to bring your attention to this part, because it had a role to play in the Cthulhu mythos and everything else. How did Lovecraft's racism shape his work? H.P. Lovecraft's contributions to the horror genre are undeniable, but his legacy is tainted by the glaring racism that infused his work and personal beliefs. Before Lovecraft became a household name in popular culture, his ideas had already seeped into the genre through other writers and fans. It wasn't until the late 1980s and 90s that people began connecting the dots between his influence and the man himself, a man whose views on race were horrifying, even by the standards of his time. Let's not sugarcoat it. Lovecraft was unapologetically racist, to a degree that's hard to excuse, even as of his era. His letters and discussions were filled with shocking diatribes, and his xenophobia bled into many of his stories. Tales like The Shadow over Innsmouth and The Horror of Red Hook don't just dabble in an eerie atmosphere, they lean heavily on metaphors for racial and cultural paranoia. Lovecraft's fear of immigration, Miscegenation and his obsession with hereditary evil turned many of his monsters into thinly veiled caricatures of his own prejudices. His infamous "monster is me" trope takes a dark and ugly turn when viewed through this lens. Some fans have argued that Lovecraft might have softened his views had he lived longer, but this is wishful thinking. His racism was extreme, even compared to others in his time. As the fantasy and horror genres have become more diverse, Lovecraft's troubling beliefs have become harder to ignore. This reckoning became starkly visible in 2011, when Nnedi Okorafor, a black writer, won the World Fantasy Award. The trophy was a bust of Lovecraft's head, a fact she learned only after a friend pointed it out. In a blog post, she voiced her discomfort at receiving an award honoring a man with such virulent racist beliefs. Her reflections reignited the conversation, forcing the community to confront Lovecraft's legacy and the problematic foundation it left behind. Oh, and the award's design was altered later on. Now that we got that covered, let's explore the Cosmicism in the Cthulhu mythos. So H.P. Lovecraft ventured into the unknown and explored his philosophy majorly through what is now known as the Cthulhu mythos. While he didn't invent the term, it encapsulates his dark universe of alien gods and ancient beings. The name Cthulhu itself, Lovecraft noted, is meant to sound utterly inhuman, with the closest pronunciation being Kulalu. These entities, unlike traditional monsters, are indifferent to humanity. Their interaction with us is purely coincidental, which makes them even more terrifying. They symbolize cosmic alienation, forces so vast and external that we can barely comprehend their existence. The horror in Lovecraft's work isn't about malice or evil, it's about insignificance. Human emotions, morals, and laws have no meaning to these entities. They exist in a dimension entirely outside our reality, beyond concepts of good and evil. Lovecraft described this essence of externality in a letter, urging readers to forget that humanity's values mean anything in the cosmos. These beings exist in a realm where the impossible is routine and humanity is utterly negligible. The Cthulhu mythos is intentionally fragmented, offering glimpses into its vast lore rather than a cohesive system. Lovecraft's creatures are varied, including the Elder Things, Great Old Ones, Deep Ones, and Outer Gods. The sheer knowledge of their existence is a source of dread. They came from the stars long before humans and remain scattered across Earth and beyond. The Elder Things were the first aliens to colonize Earth, creating the shape-shifting Shoggoth as slaves. In At the Mountains of Madness, an Antarctic expedition encounters these terrifying protoplasmic beings, described as massive, glowing, multi-eyed horrors that crush everything in their path, including the frantic penguins. This chilling depiction highlights Lovecraft's ability to evoke terror through the truly alien. The Great Old Ones, including Cthulhu, once ruled Earth but now lie dormant. Cthulhu, the high priest and dreamer, slumbers beneath the Pacific in R'lyeh, an underwater city. He's described as an immense octopus-headed monstrosity, echoing the word chthonic, a reference to the underworld. Octopi, some of the Earth's most alien creatures, pale in comparison to this eldritch entity. Lovecraft's descriptions evoke sheer madness. A mountain walked or stumbled, he writes in The Call of Cthulhu. Cthulhu exists in a paradoxical state, sleeping yet aware, dead yet eternal. His infamous line from the Nameless City captures the essence of his mythos. That is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange eons, even death may die. Cthulhu's world defies understanding, lurking in the depths of the ocean and the unconscious mind, a harrowing reminder of humanity's fragile grasp on reality. Lovecraft's mythos isn't just about horror, it's a haunting meditation on our place, or lack thereof, in an incomprehensibly vast universe. Lovecraft's fictional universe, particularly the Cthulhu mythos, captures the vast, terrifying unknown beyond human comprehension. At its heart lies Cthulhu, a being so immense and eternal that even death loses meaning in its presence. Cthulhu doesn't just exist, he redefines existence, residing in an incomprehensible state between life and death. While asleep, he influences humanity through dreams, lurking in the unconscious and fostering an anxiety we can never quite place. His cult, scattered across the globe, worships him with chants like, "In his house at R'lyeh, dead Cthulhu waits dreaming." The mythos introduces the chilling idea that when stars align, Cthulhu and the Great Old Ones will awaken, reclaiming their dominion over Earth. This cult devotion is darkly ironic. The worshippers unknowingly pray for their own doom. These entities are beyond morality. They are neither good nor evil. Their indifference to humanity adds to the horror. What little malice we attribute to them is a desperate human attempt to explain the inexplicable. In the Call of Cthulhu, the protagonist's curiosity drives him to unravel the mystery of the Great Old Ones, only to be shattered by the revelation of their existence. His final words resonate with existential horror. I shall never sleep calmly again when I think of the horrors that lurk ceaselessly behind life in time and in space. Lovecraft's narratives evoke a profound sense of dread by suggesting that reality itself teeters on the edge of an unknowable abyss. The mythos expands with entities like the Deep Old Ones, introduced in the Shadow over Innsmouth. These amphibious humanoids inhabit the oceans, worship Dagon, and maintain a disturbing connection to humanity through interbreeding. Their existence serves as a reminder that the alien may already be among us, hidden in plain sight. Beyond Earth, the outer gods reign supreme. These cosmic entities, located in realms outside human comprehension, embody the ultimate forces of chaos and creation. Yog-Sothoth is the gatekeeper of space and time, omniscient and omnipresent. It exists beyond the boundaries of reality, embodying the unity of past, present, and future. Those who seek Yog-Sothoth's forbidden knowledge often descend into madness, as humanity was never meant to grasp such truths. Shub-Niggurath, known as the Not-to-be-Named, is a cloud-like entity with little explanation beyond her terrifying presence. Nyarlathotep, by contrast, is far more active and frequently appears on Earth. A cosmic trickster, he manipulates humanity, embodying deception and chaos. In the Dreams in the Witch House, Lovecraft describes Nyarlathotep as a link between the incomprehensible gods and humans, a reminder of forces we cannot control or fully understand. At the top of this cosmic hierarchy is Azathoth, the blind idiot god. This being is the creator of all existence, though it is utterly mindless. The universe, Lovecraft suggests, is simply a dream within Azathoth's infinite consciousness. Should it awaken, all reality would dissolve into nothingness. Lesser deities play maddening tunes to keep Azathoth in its slumber, for its awakening would erase existence entirely. Azathoth represents disorder itself, a chaotic force immune to human concepts of creation or destruction. Lovecraft's entities rarely take center stage in his stories, but remain a looming presence. They serve as a backdrop to the human struggle against the unknown, emphasizing how small and fragile we are in the cosmic scheme. Their power lies in their mystery. We see only fragments of their incomprehensible nature. One of Lovecraft's most innovative tools for expressing the alien is his use of non-Euclidean geometry. In the Call of Cthulhu, the geometry of R'lyeh is described as warped, defying human understanding. Angles that should not exist and shapes that behave contrary to physical laws create a sense of disorientation and unease. These impossible landscapes reflect the otherworldly dimensions Lovecraft's entities inhabit. Lovecraft's horrors extend beyond physical appearance. They delve into the psychological disarray that arises when humans encounter the incomprehensible. In the Dreams in the Witch House, objects and creatures are described as shifting, ephemeral forms that cannot be pinned down. They exist in dimensions beyond our perception, appearing and vanishing without explanation. Their movements defy physics, emphasizing our inability to grasp their true nature. The fourth dimension is central to Lovecraft's cosmic horror. He imagined entities whose very forms are incompatible with three-dimensional space, creating a sense of disorientation akin to an ant perceiving a human. For us, these beings are incomprehensible. Their presence invokes a visceral fear of the unknown. We cannot fight them, perceive them fully, or escape their influence. This inescapable dread defines Lovecraft's cosmic horror. The realization that our laws of nature and understanding of reality are fragile constructions is deeply unsettling. The very fabric of existence can shift without warning, leaving us powerless and adrift. Lovecraft's genius lies in evoking this terror without fully explaining it. His descriptions remain deliberately vague, forcing readers to fill in the gaps with their imagination, a space where the mind creates its most personal fears. The Cthulhu mythos embodies the ultimate confrontation with the unknown. It challenges humanity's hubris, reminding us of our insignificance in a vast, uncaring universe. Lovecraft's work suggests that true horror lies not in the malevolence of monsters, but in the realization that we are utterly irrelevant. This is why his stories continue to resonate. They confront us with questions about existence itself, questions for which we have no comforting answers. The human mind abhors a vacuum of knowledge. When faced with the unknown, whether it's the origins of the universe or the mystery of death, we conjure answers to fill the silence. Lovecraft explored this deeply human compulsion in his works, often showing how the pursuit of forbidden knowledge can unravel both the seeker and their reality. Central to this theme is the infamous Necronomicon, written by the mad Arab Abdul al-Hazred, a book so dread-inducing that reading it often leads to madness or death. Despite knowing the risks, Lovecraft's characters persist in their quests, driven by curiosity or arrogance, and invariably pay the price. Forbidden knowledge transforms those who encounter it. Once the truth is revealed, it becomes an inseparable part of the self, no matter how horrifying. The revelation can feel like a form of destruction, like learning of a terminal illness that, once known, redefines one's existence. Lovecraft's characters often spiral into madness, not because of what they see, but because they can no longer unsee it. Dreams held a powerful allure for Lovecraft, serving as both inspiration and a thematic cornerstone. He envisioned the dreamlands as an otherworldly dimension accessible only through sleep, a place where the boundaries of human understanding dissolve. These dreamlands are both personal and shared, a vast alien landscape shaped by the unconscious. In the dream quest of Unknown Kadath, Lovecraft captures the wonder and terror of these realms, showing how dreams can reveal truths that the waking world hides. Dreams, in his works, are a double-edged sword, gateways to awe-inspiring vistas, but also to forbidden knowledge and cosmic horror. Lovecraft also delves into the idea of otherness, the alien and unfamiliar aspects of reality that challenge our sense of self. His stories strip readers of their preconceived notions, confronting them with their own fragility. Characters who cling to their individuality, resisting this sense of otherness, often descend into madness. Lovecraft's vision suggests that self and other must coexist, that humanity must accept its place in a larger, uncaring universe. This theme is explored in Through the Gate of the Silver Key, where Randolph Carter uses a mysterious artifact to access the ultimate gate. Beyond it, he sees not only his past and future selves, but versions of himself across all of history. These Carters are all equally him, each shaped by small decisions branching into countless timelines. This revelation shatters his individuality, showing him that he is not a singular autonomous being, but part of an interconnected web of existence. French philosopher Gilles Deleuze offers an intriguing lens for interpreting Lovecraft's work. He contrasts paranoia, which clings to a rigid sense of identity, with schizomadness, which embraces the fluidity of existence and integrates otherness. This mirrors Carl Jung's concept of individuation, where one must confront and accept the unconscious to achieve a more complete self. Lovecraft's stories challenge readers to undertake their own journey of anti-human becoming, confronting the alien within themselves. In The Outsider, Lovecraft offers a haunting reflection on identity and isolation. The protagonist, a solitary figure living in a decaying castle, decides to venture into the unknown rather than endure a life devoid of light. Emerging into a world of people, he is met with horror and terror. Fleeing in confusion, he finally sees his reflection in a mirror, a monstrous figure. The realization that he is the very thing he feared reveals Lovecraft's core message. The monster is often none other than ourselves. Lovecraft's works compel us to confront the boundaries of our knowledge, the fragility of our identities, and the vast, uncaring universe that surrounds us. His horrors lie not in the grotesque creatures, but in the realization that we are small, vulnerable, and profoundly alien even to ourselves. The true terror is not what we discover in the unknown, but how it reshapes us forever. So yeah, that was all in this one. Needless to say, Lovecraft likely believed his work would vanish into obscurity obscurity. Yet he didn't let his hardships crush his creativity. Instead, he channeled his dark experiences into his stories. Thanks to loyal friends who preserved his work, Lovecraft is now celebrated as one of the greatest weird fiction writers, proving that even the bleakest lives can leave behind a luminous legacy. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.